Jai Sripad Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj ki Jai.
Vandeyam Shri Guru Shiyata Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raganatam Vidam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabhadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishikam Vitam Scha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyanajana Shalakaya Chakshuram Nidamyena Tasma Shri Gurave Namah Gurva Bhishtam Sapurakam Gurganara Sisha Sambhushitam Chintya Chintya Samasta Veda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanagam Govindabhidam Ujwalam Varatanam Bhaktyan Vidam Sundaram Vande Vishwagurun Shah Divyat Bhagavat Prem Nawe Bija Pranam Devam Divyatanam Suchana Varanam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadekavaranam Vairagya Vidyambunim Sri Siddhanta Nidhim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Banditam Shubharam Madeka Sharanam Nyashishwara Sridharam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavenibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahamananyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaurata Vishe Namah. So we're hearing from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, with translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad. This is Adi-lila, chapter 4, the confidential reasons for the Lord's appearance. And this is text number 35. Bhavet kriya virilin se iha koi kartavya avasya anyata pratyabhai. Here the use of the word bhavet, which is in the imperative mood, tells us that this certainly must be done. Non-compliance would be abandonment of duty. So this is referring to the previous verse, which was Anugrahaya bhaktanam manusham deham ashritaha bhajate tadrishi krita yashrutva tatparo bhavet. Krishna manifests his eternal human-like form and performs his pastimes to show mercy to the devotees. Having heard such pastimes, one should engage in service to him. And here the use of the word bhavet, which is in an imperative mood, tells us that this certainly must be done. Non-compliance would be abandonment of duty. This imperative is applicable to pure devotees. Neophytes will be able to understand these affairs only after being elevated by regulated devotional service under the expert guidance of the spiritual master. Then they too will be competent to hear of the love affairs of Radha and Krishna. As long as one is in material conditioned life, strict discipline is required in the matter of moral and immoral activities. The absolute world is transcendental and free from such distinctions because their inebriety is not possible. But in this material world, a sexual appetite necessitates distinction between moral and immoral conduct. There are no sexual activities in the spiritual world. The transactions between lover and beloved in the spiritual world are pure transcendental love and unadulterated bliss. One who has not been attracted by the transcendental beauty of rasa will certainly be dragged down into material attraction, thus to act in material contamination and progress to the darkest region of hellish life. But by understanding the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, one is freed from the grip of attraction to material so-called love between man and woman. Similarly, one who understands the pure parental love of Nanda and Yashoda for Krishna will be saved from being dragged into material parental affection. If one accepts Krishna as the supreme friend, the attraction of material friendship will be finished for him, and he will not be dismayed by so-called friendship with mundane wranglers. If he is attracted by servitorship to Krishna, he will no longer have to serve the material body in the degraded status of material existence with a false hope of becoming master in the future. Similarly, one who sees the greatness of Krishna in neutrality will certainly never again seek the so-called relief of impersonalist or voidist philosophy. If one is not attracted by the transcendental nature of Krishna, one is sure to be attracted to material enjoyment, thus to become implicated in the clinging network of virtuous and sinful activities and to continue material existence by transmigrating from one material body to another. Only in Krishna consciousness can one achieve the highest perfection of life. A Bansha Chaiche Krishna Prakataya Karan Asura Samhara Anusanga Prayojan Emata Chaitanya Krishna Purna Bhagavan Jugadharma Pravartana Nahitarakam. Just as these desires are the fundamental reason for Krishna's appearance, whereas destroying the demons is only an incidental necessity, so for Sri Krishna Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, promulgating the Dharma of the age is incidental. Kon karane jabe hoila avatare man jugadharma kala hoila se kale milan. When the Lord desired to appear for another reason, the time for promulgating the religion of the age also arose. Dui hetu avatari loya bhaktagan apane ashware prema nama sankirtan. Thus, with two intentions, the Lord appeared with his devotees and tasted the nectar of prema with the congregational chanting of the holy name. Se dware achandale kirtana sanchare nama prema mala ganti paraila samsare. Thus he spread kirtan even among the untouchables. He wove a wreath of the holy name and prema with which he garlanded the entire material world. Emata bhakta bhava koriangikar apaniya chari bhakti korila prajar. In this way, assuming the sentiment of a devotee, he preached devotional service while practicing it himself. When Rupa Goswami met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Prayag, Allahabad, he offered his respectful obeisances by submitting that Lord Chaitanya was more magnanimous than any other avatar of Krishna because he was distributing love of Krishna. His mission was to enhance love of Godhead. In the human form of life, the highest achievement is to attain the platform of love of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya did not invent a system of religion, as people sometimes assume. Religious systems are meant to show the existence of God, who is then generally approached as the cosmic order supplier. But Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental mission is to distribute love of Godhead to everyone. Anyone who accepts God as the Supreme can take to the process of chanting Hare Krishna and become a lover of God. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is the most magnanimous. This munificent broadcasting of devotional service is possible only for Krishna himself. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has taught the philosophy is surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who has surrendered to the Supreme can make further progress by learning to love him. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement propagated by Lord Chaitanya is especially meant for those who are cognizant of the presence of the Supreme Godhead, the ultimate controller of everything. His mission is to teach people how to dovetail themselves into engagements of transcendental loving service. He is Krishna teaching his own service from the position of a devotee. The Lord's acceptance of the role of a devotee in the eternal form of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is another of the Lord's wonderful features. A conditioned soul cannot reach the absolute personality of Godhead by his imperfect endeavor, and therefore it is wonderful that Lord Sri Krishna in the form of Lord Gauranga has made it easy for everyone to approach him. Swarup Damodar Goswami has described Lord Chaitanya as Krishna himself with the attitude of Radharani, or a combination of Radha and Krishna. The intention of Lord Chaitanya is to teach Krishna's sweetness in transcendental love. He does not care to think of himself as Krishna because he wants the position of Radharani. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahiyanya. It's covered with the mood and the beauty of Srimati Radharani, although he's Krishna himself. We should remember this. A class of so-called devotees called the Nadia Nagaris or Gora Nagaris pretend that they have the sentiment of gopis toward Lord Chaitanya, but they do not realize that he placed himself not as the enjoyer of Krishna, but as the enjoyed, the devotee of Krishna. The concoctions of unauthorized persons pretending to be bona fide have not been accepted by Lord Chaitanya. Presentations such as those of the Gauranagaris are only disturbances to the sincere execution of the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is undoubtedly Krishna himself, and he is always non-different from Srimati Radharani. But the emotion, technically called Vipralamba Bhava, which the Lord adopted for confidential reasons, should not be disturbed in the name of service. A mundaner should not unnecessarily intrude into affairs of transcendence and thereby displease the Lord. One must always be on guard against this sort of devotional anomaly. A devotee is not meant to create disturbances to Krishna. As Srila Rupa Goswami has explained, devotional service is anukulyena, or favorable to Krishna. Acting unfavorably towards Krishna is not devotion. Krishna was the enemy of Krishna. Kamsa was the enemy of Krishna. He always thought of Krishna, but he thought of him as an enemy. One should always avoid such unfavorable so-called service. Lord Chaitanya has accepted the role of Radharani, and we should support that position, as Swarup Damodar did in the Gambhir, the room where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in Puri. He always reminded Lord Chaitanya of Radha's feelings of separation, as they are described in Srimad Bhagavatam, and Lord Chaitanya appreciated his assistance. But the Gauranagaris, who place Lord Chaitanya in the position of enjoyer in themselves as his enjoyed, are not approved by Lord Chaitanya or by Lord Chaitanya's followers. Instead of being blessed, the foolish imitators are left completely apart. Their concoctions are against the principles of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The doctrine of transcendental enjoyment by Krishna cannot be mixed up with the doctrine of transcendental feeling of separation from Krishna in the role of Radharani. Dasya Sakya Vatsalya Ar Jai Shringar Chari Prema Chaturbida Bhakta E Adar. 4 kinds of devotees are the receptacles of the 4 kinds of mellows in love of God, namely servitude, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. And here, Shringara Ras refers to conjugal love. 4 kinds of devotees are the receptacles of the 4 kinds of mellows of love of God, namely servitude, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. Nija Nija Baba Sabe Shrestha Korimane, Nija Bhave Kore Krishna Sukha Ashwarane. Each kind of devotee feels that his sentiment is the most excellent, and thus in that mood he tastes great happiness with Lord Krishna. Tatasta hoya mane vichar jadi kori, sabarasa hoite shringare adika madhuri. But if we compare the sentiments in an impartial mood, we find that the conjugal sentiment is superior to all others in sweetness. No one is higher or lower than anyone else in transcendental relationships with the Lord, for in the absolute realm everything is equal. But although these relationships are absolute, there are also transcendental differences between them. Thus the transcendental relationship of conjugal love is considered the highest perfection. Jato taram aso svara visheshola samai api ratir vasanaya svadbi basate kapi kasyachit. Increasing love is experienced in various tastes, one above another, but that love which has the highest taste in the gradual succession of desire manifests itself in the form of conjugal love. Relationship with Krishna as lover. Ateva madhura ras kahi taranam swakiya parakiya bhave dvivida samstan. Therefore I call it madhura ras. It has two further divisions, namely wedded and unwedded love. Parakiya bhave ati rasera ulas brajavina ihar anyatra nahibas. There is a great increase of mellow in the unwedded conjugal mood. Such love is found nowhere but in Braja. Brajabadu ganere bhava nirabadi taramadye Sri Radhaya bhavera abadi. This mood is unbounded in the damsels of Braja, but among them it finds its perfection in Sri Radha. Prodha nirmala bhava prema sarvatam krishnara madhurya rasa asvara karan. Her pure mature love surpasses that of all others. Her love is the cause of Lord Krishna's tasting the sweetness of the conjugal relationship. Ateva se bhava angikara kori sadilena nijabansha Gauranga Sri Hari. Therefore Lord Gauranga, who is Sri Hari himself, accepted the sentiments of Radha and thus fulfilled his own desires. Of the four kinds of reciprocation of loving service, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya, Madhurya is considered the fullest. But the conjugal relationship is further divided into two varieties, namely Swakiya and Parakiya. Swakiya is the relationship with Krishna as a formerly married husband, and Parakiya is a relationship with Krishna as a paramour. Expert analysts have decried that the transcendental ecstasy of the Parakiya mellow is better because it is more enthusiastic. This phase of conjugal love is found in those who have surrendered to the Lord in intense love, knowing well that such illicit love with a paramour is not morally approved in society. The risk involved in such love of Godhead makes this emotion superior to the relationship in which such risk is not involved. The validity of such risk, however, is possible only in the transcendental realm. Swakiya and Parakiya conjugal love of Godhead have no existence in the material world, and Parakiya is not exhibited anywhere in Vaikuntha, but only in the portion of Goloka Vrindavan known as Braja. Some devotees think that Krishna is eternally the enjoyer in Goloka Vrindavan, but only sometimes comes to the platform of Braja to enjoy Parakiya Ras. The 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, however, have explained that Krishna's pastimes in Braja are eternal, like his other activities in Goloka Vrindavan. Braja is a confidential part of Goloka Vrindavan. Krishna exhibited his Braja pastimes on the surface of this world, and similarly pastimes are eternally exhibited in Braja in Goloka Vrindavan, where Parakiya Rasa is ever existent. In the third chapter of this epic, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has explicitly accepted the fact that Krishna appears in this material world at the end of the Dwarpara age of the 28th Chatur Juga of Vaivasvata Manu and brings with him his Brajadam, which is the eternal abode of his highest pastimes. As the Lord appears by his own internal potency, so he also brings all his paraphernalia by the same internal potency without extraneous help. It is further stated here in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Parakiya sentiment exists only in that transcendental realm and nowhere else. This highest form of ecstasy can exist only in the most confidential part of the transcendental world, but by the causeless mercy of the Lord, we can have a peep into that invisible Braja. The transcendental mellow relished by the gopis in Braja is super excellently featured in Srimati Radharani. Mature assimilation of the transcendental humor of conjugal love is represented by Srimati Radharani, whose feelings are incomprehensible even to the Lord himself. The intensity of her loving service is the highest form of ecstasy. No one can surpass Srimati Radharani in relishing the qualities of the Lord through this supreme transcendental mellow. Therefore, the Lord himself agreed to assume the position of Radharani in the form of Lord Sri Gauranga. He then relished the highest positions of Parakiya Rasa as exhibited in the transcendental abode of Braja. So here when the word mellow is used, that refers to rasa, the mellows of Dasharas, Sakya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, and Madhurya Ras. The Prabhupada is translating that rasa as mellow. Literally, the word rasa can be said to mean taste. That's one meaning, like the taste of food is sometimes called rasa. But here, rasa more correctly is translated as mellow. Sureshanam durgam gatir atishayeno pani shadam muninam sarvasvam pranata patalinam madhurima vinir yasha prema nikila pashu palambujadrisham na chaitanya kim me punar api drishur yashyati param. Lord Chaitanya is the shelter of the demigods, the goal of the Upanishads, and the be-all and end-all of the great sages, the beautiful shelter of his devotees, and the essence of the love of the lotus-eyed gopis. Will he again be the object of my vision? Aparam kashyapi pranayi jana vrindasya kutuki rasastomam ridva madhuram upabhoktam kim kamapi yaha rucham svam avavre dutim iha tadiyam prakatayan sadevas chaitanya kritir atitaram na kripa yatu. Lord Krishna desired to taste the limitless nectarian mellows of the love of one of his multitude of loving damsels, Sri Radha. And so he has assumed the form of Lord Chaitanya. He has tasted that love while hiding his own dark complexion with her effulgent yellow color. May that Lord Chaitanya confer upon us his grace. Text 51 and 52 are respectively Pratama Sri Chaitanyastaka 2 and Dvitiya Sri Chaitanyastaka 3 from the Stavamala of Srila Rupa Goswami. Bhava grahanere hetu koila dharma stapan taramukya hetu kaheshuna sarvajan. To accept ecstatic love is the main reason he appeared and re-established the religious system for this age. I shall now explain that reason. Everyone please listen. Mula hetu age shloker koila abas ebe kahi se shlokera arta prakash. Having first given hints about the verse describing the principal reason why the Lord appeared, now I shall manifest its full meaning. Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladini Shaktir Asmad Ekatmana Vapi Bhuvi Pura Deha Bidam Gatoto Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Adhuna Tad Dvayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Baba Duty Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. This text is from the diary of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami. It appears as the fifth of the first 14 verses of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So this is the this is Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Ladinya Shaktir Asmad Ekatmana Vapi Bhuvi Pura Deha Bidam Gatoto Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Adhuna Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Baba Duty Suvalitam Nomi Krishna Swarupam. The loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna are transcendental manifestations of the Lord's internal pleasure-giving potency. Although Radha and Krishna are one in their identity, they separated themselves eternally. Now these two transcendental identities have again united in the form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya. I bow down to him who has manifested himself with the sentiment and complexion of Srimati Radharani, although he is Krishna himself. Radha Krishna Ek Atma Dui Dehadari Anjonye Vilase Rasa Ashwadan Kori. Radha and Krishna are one and the same, but they have assumed two bodies. Thus they enjoy each other, tasting the mellow of love. The two transcendentalists, Radha and Krishna, are a puzzle to materialists. The above description of Radha and Krishna from the diary of Srila Swarup Damodar is a condensed explanation, but one needs great spiritual insight to understand the mystery of these two personalities. One is enjoying in two. Sri Krishna is the potent factor, and Srimati Radharani is the internal potency. According to Vedanta philosophy, there is no difference between the potent and the potency. They are identical. We cannot differentiate between one and the other any more than we can separate fire from heat. Everything in the absolute is inconceivable in relative existence. Therefore, in relative cognizance, it is very difficult to assimilate this truth of the oneness between the potent and the potency. The philosophy of inconceivable oneness and difference propounded by Lord Chaitanya is the only source of understanding for such intricacies of transcendence. In fact, Radharani is the internal potency of Sri Krishna, and she In fact, Radharani is the internal potency of Sri Krishna, and she eternally intensifies the pleasure of Sri Krishna. Impersonalists cannot understand this without the help of a Mahabhagavat devotee. The very name Radha suggests that Srimati Radharani is eternally the topmost mistress of the comforts of Sri Krishna. As such, she is the medium transmitting the living entity's service to Sri Krishna. Devotees in Vrindavan therefore seek the mercy of Srimati Radharani in order to be recognized as loving servitors of Sri Krishna. Lord Chaitanya personally approaches the fallen conditioned souls of the Iron Age to deliver the highest principle of transcendental relationships with the Lord. The activities of Lord Chaitanya are primarily in the role of the pleasure-giving portion of his internal potency. The absolute personality of God as Sri Krishna is the omnipotent form of transcendental existence, knowledge and bliss in full. His internal potency is exhibited first as sat, or existence, or in other words, as the same, or in other words, as the potency. His internal potency is exhibited first as sat, or existence, or in other words, as the portion that expands the existence function of the Lord. When the same potency displays full knowledge, it is called chit, or samvit, which expands the transcendental forms of the Lord. Finally, when the same potency plays as a pleasure-giving medium, it is known as ladini, or the transcendental blissful potency. Thus the Lord manifests his internal potency in three transcendental divisions. Se duiek ebe Chaitanya Gosai rasa svadite dohe koil ek tai. Now to enjoy rasa they have appeared in one body as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thank you. Iti lage age kore thara vivaran jahoite hoy gorer mahima katan. Therefore, I shall first delineate the position of Radha and Krishna. From that description, the glory of Lord Chaitanya will be known. Radhika Hoyen Krishner Pranaya Bikar Swarup Shakti Ladini Nama Jahar. Srimati Radhika is the transformation of Krishna's love. She is his internal potency called Ladini. Ladini Karaya Krishne Ananda Shwadan Badinira Dwara Kore Bhaktera Pushan Ladini Karaya Krishna Ananda Shwadan Ladinira Dwara Kore Bhaktera Pushan. That Ladini energy gives Krishna pleasure and nourishes his devotees. So I'm going to stop here tomorrow. I'll start with this verse. That Ladini energy gives Krishna pleasure and nourishes his devotees. Okay. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama. Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama. Jaravaya Maravaya Keshavaya Nama. Jaravaya Maravaya Keshavaya Nama. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan. Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Giridhari Gopinatha Marana Mohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Chandra Janardan Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Janardan Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Jai Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunath Hey Jai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jai Te Vignana Shabishta Puran Jai Te Vignana Shabishta Puran Hey Jai Gosai Jar Mui Taradas Jai Gosai Jar Mui Taradas Tasabara Pada Renu Mora Panchagas Sabara Pada Renu Mora Panchagas Anande Bol Dader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Dader Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanibas Janame More Ambilas Janame Janame More Ambilas Hey Jai Gosai Jabe Bhaje Koilabas Jai Gosai Jabe Bhaje Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudas Nam Sankirtana Kohe Naratamudas Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Nitai Gora Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nitai Gora Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nitai Gora Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Nitai Gora Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Hari Bo Jai Saparikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhari Ju Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmal Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakshidhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishoredas Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhaktivedanta Thakur ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Varga ki Jai. Namachari Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhadadasha Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu ki Jai. Prem Sigo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Shri Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. Vishvavaranya Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupad ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Govardhan Sham Guna Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Ju ki Jai. Shri Purushottam Madam ki Jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Dev ki Jai. Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Ju ki Jai. Bhakti Vigna Vinashaya Ashina Shingadev ki Jai. Bhakta Prabhara Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai. Shri Akadasi Upavas ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj ki Jai.